is an accountant, hails from Newcastle, and I was going up to do a little convention in Southport. Cut a long story short, I was sitting in the hotel lounge because I went up a day early to do a television interview. So I was sitting there twiddling my thumbs and talking to the organiser's girlfriend then, wife now, name of April. I always call her Pat. Why? Why do I call April Pat? Why do I call April Pat?
Why do you call April Pat?
We're not playing you the rest of the challenge.
April love is for the very young. So I said to her, when I first met her, did your parents like Pat Boone? Alright? And she said, no, just that I happened to be born in April. This is a sudden aside. Anyway, I always call her Pat. And I realised now that she was keeping me on a very tight rein and wouldn't allow me out of the lounge. And then her husband-to-be came in, and he had his mobile in his hand. And he said, do you know somebody called Karen? And I said, yes. Ah, right. And handed me the mobile. And I thought, my God, he's got her on the mobile. So I went, hello, and it was dead. And I said, well, I'm sorry, she must have run off. And he said, oh, she's not there? I said, no. And he said, well, maybe that's because she's here. And in walked this girl that I've been corresponding with for all these years. And I was gobsmacked, but I think she was more afeared than I was. So she's done another of the forewords, and another lovely lass from Glasgow has done the other. So that's the answer to your question. You know me, I can go on blethering forever. But yeah. And that's what I love. I mean, whereas first book, foreword by Roger Moore. Second book, Uncle Peter Mayhew, Father Jeremy Bullock, another father, Nick Courtney, and we, Kenny Baker, of course, did the forewords to that one. And this time, I've got chums to do. And the lovely thing is, everybody at conventions, when I talk about this, they say, oh, right, gosh. There's a couple of, because there's flavours of it in Yes Admiral, and there's a couple of guys who go from convention to convention to convention, wherever Jeremy or I are appearing. And their names are Mike and Darren. And I went to, it was last year's Starfleet Ball, and I came in with a box on the Friday, expecting to put it behind the counter, and they swooped on it, and I bless their hearts, I bet you anything they've not read the book, but they went, oh, look, there we are. So there we are. You will, all of you who have spoken, yeah, yes. Yes, I know you do. Sorry, I'm looking over your shoulder into a camera. You haven't said you've done one yet, and you haven't told us what it is.
What?
Oh, my details. Because the hospital haven't told her what it is, which is interesting, isn't it? I thought that was something that didn't happen. Sorry?
They ask if you want to know.
Ah, right. And they've obviously said, no, we don't.
No, those people refused to tell their partner, because I thought that's what my
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, did you get a choice, say yes or no? And they said, no, this is what they tell us.
Right.
They won't tell you.
Ah, I see.
What was the for?
In other words, if the scan doesn't show a protuberance, we know to go.
Not necessarily.
No, you know it's not
necessarily. Yeah.
Oh.
There's one thing they look for on each, if you can't see either, then they just say we can't tell you.
Yeah.
What do they look for? Oh, I see.
But it really rather entirely depends which way the baby's lying, what bits they can actually see.
Right. Well, anyway, so write as much as you can, and the rest will go in the next book. See what I mean? In fact, David, what I want to know is what I'm supposed to flipping well do. Okay?
We'll tell you that.
Yeah, I know. Would you like to tell us now? Because Leslie's told us some of what's involved. Perhaps you know more.
Not until I see the final draft of the program.
The problem is partly that this is tied in with the program.
And also we don't want to spoil it.
No. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. I haven't made myself clear. What I would like you to do. See, I'm hearing things like I've got to carry this sword in case you piss off and I have to manage.
No.
Things like that.
You have to hand us our swords.
What?
You have to hand us our swords.
Oh, dear. So you can lop her ears off or something. I've heard that as well. And then you go and vomit at the side of the thing.
No. So that we can duel.
Right.
Has anybody seen the DS9 Klingon wedding episode?
Yes.
We're going to do that with London Jakar.
There's a bit of dialogue, there's a big sword fight, and then we kiss.
I'm still trying to decide how we get Gary Strutman to go the whole weekend before, or half weekend before it, and then you put his on the Klingon
Did we mention that? Did we mention that to Michael?
What?
Yeah, you have to do it.
Traditionally, the attendants at a Klingon wedding are not allowed to drink.
They have to.
Well, we had all that last night.
They have to
Similar
fast.
sort of thing.
They have to fast and meditate and hold hot coals and stuff like that.
Hold hot coals and stuff like that.
Fortunately, since neither the bride nor the groom are Klingons, we'll skip that.
Well, what has she got that hairstyle for then?
Afterwards, once the thing's done, you do get to come and attack us with big parties.
Oh, yes, you did mention that. Yeah, but no, that's the sort of thing I want, mate. I mean, it's another slant, because I will be honest and say...
In the morning we've got the registry office.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I'm looking forward to that. That's straightforward, there's no problem there. But it's very difficult for me to be modest. But I have had some lovely things said about me. And so that's one of the reasons.
So you want us to redress the balance?
Absolutely. We've got a lovely one here when this lovely lady had her teeth knocked out.
They've cracked all down the side.
Well, let's call it cracked and knocked out. It's better.
Exaggeration.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh yeah, make you sound even worse than he is.
Yeah.
Now then, if I go over your shoulder again, as well as talking about your job, the guy sitting next to you said that I'm not really qualified to talk about this, but could you talk about, what it's like to be an accountant and have, how many? 7?
Yeah.
Children at conventions. I haven't had anything about children at conventions, so that would be fun. Now, how did you get on with Honiton?
I've got the details. They give me email address.
Good.
So hopefully all been well.
Right. Well, you have a chat with him, and who would have thought that this one? Well, no, we'll go into that later. Give us some lines. Give us a few lines, because. Anything you were saying out there, experiences at conventions.
Well, I must admit that some of the conventions I've been to, I mean, if you've ever seen, some of us have seen Galaxy Quest, I mean, you find you can draw very similar parallels to Galaxy Quest in many respects. I mean, fortunately, I don't think this one's too much like Galaxy Quest, but, at least, we're not all queuing up for autographs, and that's the convention.
Now, what I have said, actually, write that, because that's a new slant. Do you see what I mean? And in fact, as you spoke, I have not had one insert, as I call them, it's the way I get into it, I call them pesky inserters, who keep on trying to get in my book. But I've not had one that has said, bloody awful things, conventions, I hated the one I went to, which speaks volumes, I think, because they're all damn good and, you know, happy occasions.
They have bits in them that can be a real pain in the arse.
Of course, of course. I mean, it happens at any party, doesn't it?
Dave's computer is one.
Right, let's see, how are we doing? Fine.
Yeah, you've got plenty of time.
Okay, so anybody, you haven't spoken, have you?
No, I'm a virgin.
No. Are you a virgin as well?
That's good in the book.
A convention virgin,
No,
Christopher?
I've not been to a full con until this year. I
Right.
did come for parts of it last year, but...
That's right, you did, yeah. Okay. Give me 150 words. I'd love it, because we've got two more virgins sitting on your left, and they're going to write, although one of them's going to write about asking questions at Q&As, basically, aren't you? Well, we know what you're going to write about. But it's this sort of thing that I love, and as many varied as I can get. So, Christopher, don't let me down. Right, thank you very much. Now you put your hand up. Well, I think I've got everybody in the room lined up.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Right.
Would you like me to alert some of my fellow members of the USS Dragon?
Now that would be super, my darling. In fact, I haven't had one from them yet, and that's naughty.
Barbara can come up with you.
Yeah, I bet she can.
And Caroline.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Annalie. And, well, yes.
Well, sorry, excuse us just for a moment. This is an evening with in Southampton. Annalie, I'd like her to talk about the photograph of her on her mum's windowsill. You remember that? Because that's already in the book.
Right.
The fact that the photograph is there.
Yes.
But yes, love, I'd love it. That would be super.
Okay.
I'm not going to have any of my text left if I go on like this. But no, that's great. Grand.
Con memoirs.
Oh, yeah, hang on, I'm coming to you. No, quite seriously, I have had nothing about what it's like to do all this. You could write me a few lines, couldn't you? You could write me a few lines, couldn't you?
All right, that's myself.
Now, forgive me, I don't know actually. Are you local?
Yeah.
All right, so you can...
I have got your email address.
You have, of course you have. Okay, I will expect a full intro in no time at all. Excuse me. Come on. Come along. Now, do you know what we're talking about? No.
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 You want to?
Yes, of course he does. I have, as you know, lots and lots of chums in Cardiff. Yeah. Melanie Hill.
I think there's a totem about it.
Yeah, I know, well, they emailed me about it. Maybe it was the weather. But listen, forget that. Melody's already in the book. I want you to be the one representative from that neck of the woods who writes me 150 to 200 words about any aspect of conventioning you please, for insertion in the new book with your name. Okay? Promise?
Yes.
You've got my email address, haven't you?
Bring the bomb, bunch of mad idiots come in and drag you out and put you in a sketch.
Yes.
Yes? Wonderful one.
Having a quiet treat in the bar, and someone walking up behind behind me and saying, John, you can be a drunk, can't you?
Honestly, it is uncanny. We've been sitting here talking about this, and when you lot have spoken about what you might write, I wish I had a tape. No, it's too late now. A tape recorder, because John, that's absolutely wonderful. Yeah? Now, if you let me down, I will name you at the next convention. Or even in the book.
No, even worse. Even worse.
You can go now. But don't forget. Oh, that's super. John, would you please see, I would think Barry might do very nicely. Well, I'll tell you what, ask Sooty to come in. Oh, golly. Anybody not clear as to what is involved? It's very straightforward.
Michael, may I ask, are you asking?
That is what I was joking about. No, absolutely not. You may have been out of the room.
Oh, well, you know me,
Yeah. But I always intended to have inserts from the pesky inserters. Because this book is your book as much as mine, quite seriously. Because Bronson, Admiral, and now I want to write about conventions. Not totally about conventions. There's a heck of a lot of other things. In fact, the next thing I'm going to write about is the fact that I've been headhunted by a manager, which is quite nice. But I have changed my publisher for various reasons I won't bother to go into now. Oh, well, one of them is the fact that when I said, or got on to them and said, right, the next one's almost ready, they said, oh, no, we said one every 2 years. We have an extensive program in place, and we have no room for another book at the moment. So I said, bollocks. I have, which is true, offers from 2 other publishers, and I have decided to go with one of them. That sounds very trite, but we're still friends, Summersdale and I. But the new lot have allowed me about, well, if I want it, an extra 25,000 words. So if I write as much as I wrote in Yes, Mr. B and Admiral, and then the rest can be taken up with the pesky inserters, then I have written as much as I wrote last time. So you won't be cross, will you? No, that's all right. Phew. Any other questions? Shall we go over now to a Q&A? Yes, we've got a bit more time, but if Sooty comes round the door, I shall have to... Is he coming? No? Oh, God, he's probably pissed at me.
He's got a clanger with him now.
Ah, well, there you go.
Round of applause when he gets here.
Somebody's obviously leading with the drink. I've got the right forward.
I don't give a monkeys. Come and sit down for 2 seconds. Come on.
Give me 5 minutes.
Oh, all right then.
You'll still be here.
What? 2-6.
Joking.
I know you were. I know you were.
You can cope, you can do it.
Oh, I know, but I'm thrilled actually that so many of who is it that, oh God, it was one of those sort of 50s or 60s television series, American, where they said, for everyone on the sidewalk there is a different story or something. Naked City. That's it. Well, that is true of all you lot, bless you, because everybody has a different story to tell. And that's what's made it fascinating. I have to say one thing. I can't promise everybody a complimentary copy of the book, but I tell you what I will do. I will knock a quid off, because I have to pay the publishers, a quid off every copy of the book when somebody has done an insertion for me. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Because if I said I'll give you, I don't know how many there are, but there would be hundreds of complimentary copies going out. And dear old moi gets about 30p a copy, and the publishers and the distributors get everything else. So it's just nice to see yourself in print.
Would it be possible then for the convention, Armadacon as the whole group, to buy two at the same price for the raffle and the auction?
Of course it would, darling. The only, yes. I mean, you know me, I'm a pussycat. I just give you the broad outlines. There are one or two people, I mean, Barry will have to pay for his own. What? Yes, sorry. Yes, darling, it would go, I mean, I've already had this conversation with the landing party up in Glasgow. It's, I want to raise as much money for charity as I possibly can. The joy for me is, and I will be honest about this, getting the crypt from the Times that I got from yes, Mr. Bronson when it first came out. And they said, reading, they actually called me Mr. Sheard. Reading Mr. Sheard's book is like having a drink with him in the snug in the bar. Right, he's here, about bloody time. When have you been, sir?
Oh, look at it.
Sleeping it off.
Now then, Sooty, I want to ask you a question, darling. Okay? I am looking for an inserter. No, I don't mean that in a naughty sense of the word at all. I am getting, and lots of these lovely people here are going to write just 150 words, or maybe 200, about any aspect of... I'm looking and talking to the bloody thing!
That's what acting's all about, it's suspending
Any aspect of conventioning they wish. And I'm sure you've got lots and lots of stories about conventions, haven't you?
Not that he remembers. Well, he doesn't really remember because this is the first one he's been to where he's been assimilated.
Oh, I see. Well, what I would love you to do, mate, and if your alter ego, thank you, ego would allow, I would like you to sign it. There's one problem, up you come. There is one problem. If possible, could you let me have it before the end of the year? Thank you very much. Now,
hang on. He says so far the best thing was looking at Janice's tits last night.
absolutely wonderful. That is exact. That, Sooty, write about that, darling. And if you can get it into 150 words, you're a better man than I am.
60. He's not a man, he's a Borg.
You're a better Borg than I am.
Not difficult, you're not one.
But listen, mate, that is... Can I talk to him now? You go down and think about the Sooty you haven't got. Down. No, that won't do. Sooty, down. Barry, mate, is that all right?
Yeah.
I love it. It would be absolutely super.
You have to give us your email address.
Well, oh yeah, because you're Barnstable, aren't you?
Yeah.
Who else is Barnstable? You're Barnstable. You know each other.
Yeah.
Can I give one email address to both of you? No, I won't. I'll give you one each. But inserting into the text.
Yeah.
And it'd be super.
Well, what I'll do is I'll send down the text and some separate photographs, and you do what you want with it.
Wonderful.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. Well, I have asked for photographs as well.
Yeah.
I want to say new.
I'm not sticking an LED on the finger.
Now listen, as the Honiton contingent here, I have had one from Mr. Parsons.
I know, we haven't done ours yet.
Sweet nothing from the rest of you. This is Honiton, ladies and gentlemen. You see how they sit up?
Actually, 3 people from Honiton, we couldn't get Honiton all in. It wouldn't quite fit.
You're going to have to hurry to get in front of this lovely lot, I tell you. You see how they sit apart, though? Have you noticed that?
We're hiding.
It's not that we don't want them.
Okay, that's super. That is really super. Now then, have I got one from all of you? Who have I not got one from? I've got 2 from you. Where's he gone?
He said he went for a cigarette.
Oh, did he?
You were at the cigarette bar some weeks ago.
Oh, right. Well, quite right. Did I get young Liz at the back? No, I didn't get young Liz at the back. Oh,
Okay, or at work.
that's right.
Nothing happened. There's
Listen.
people in the Star Trek fans there already doing bothering asking.
What do you mean they just thought that's what you wear every day?
What she didn't tell you is their uniform at work is gold and black.
Oh, you're kidding. Well, then that's a nice slant on it as well. You got money out of everybody under false pretenses.
I'm not
Liz, how much did you raise?
£34 in total.
Wow.
That's super, darling. Super. Big round of applause. Yeah, absolutely. So will you please write it up for me?
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's a lovely slant, actually, that you turned up there and nobody noticed. That was wonderful.
Well, I think they noticed, they just didn't say anything.
Ah, right. And incidentally, don't forget that you had my communicator with you.
Yeah, so-
Okay. Oh, thank you. Right. Sorry.
Can I ask you a question?
You can indeed, my
He's
darling.
come from the other half, he's too lazy to come himself. Basically, he said, you've done question and answer panels and people are always asking you questions.
Yes.
Who would you like to interview on a science fiction Q&A at a convention, and what one question would you have to ask?
Is that his question? That's very erudite.
He was...
Oh, was he? Oh, right.
He said, remember it, because I won't.
Well, in actual fact, I think I've answered your question his question rather, this afternoon, by getting you lot to tell me what you like about conventions. Yeah? But you'd like to know which personality I would like to interview?
Yeah, within the sci-fi world.
Sure, yeah. Ooh. So it would have to be somebody like Tom Baker.
Not Tom.
Or
We're not worthy.
who? Oh yeah. But Tom's a good one. I always take the piss out of it anyway. And the best, and I say this just because it happened. These things. Sometimes you do something, and it's absolutely brilliant. I have done, as you know, lots of conventions and lots of Q&As, and I've loved everyone, and they've all been magnificent. But there was one, who was at Battlefield when my t'other father was there? Nick Courtney. Huh?
Well, which one?
Do you remember the Q&A? Were you there?
Might have been, probably.
It wasn't the last one, it was the one before.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
For some reason, the boy, you know what I mean by the boy. Does anybody know, well, talk to you about him, or talk to you about him. This is, when he first started, this boy was really a boy. He was 14 years old, but he was tall. Nobody knew. And he put on a convention in Exeter, didn't he? First, how many did he? 2? Was it? Before he moved north?
Well, he did one in Exeter.
He did 2 in Exeter.
The second one was the Rougemont.
That's correct, yeah. And then we effectively filled the
3 was
shoes of
Armadacon.
Armadacon, which never happened that year.
That's right. And he nicked his place.
That's right.
So he's about 17 now, the boy.
Marco Grady.
Marco Grady. Now, it just so happened that he put Nick Courtney and I together. Now, at large Q&As, I love a radio mic, and I nip in and out of the audience, and I get the questions lined up, because that keeps it moving forwards. And I still answer the question myself if it's directed at me. But I put father on the stage, the poor old bugger. You know, he's not he's not getting any younger. And it was magic. We had the most wonderful Q&A. And then we finished it off with me and my shadow, which always goes down well. So, can I say Nick and leave it at that?
Yeah, but what question would you have?
What question?
Would you ask him? I mean, I know...
Yeah, what question would I ask him? Blimey. What do you mean, who's buying the next drink? No, the lady wants a sensible answer.
Do you do that?
Oh yes. Let me think of a sensible answer. Well, it's not a sensible answer, but it's quite interesting this, because it might have been, who's your agent? And it is interesting because Wendy Padbury, who knows Wendy Padbury?
Yep.
Of course you do. Who was her doctor?
Patrick Troughton.
Was it as long ago as that?
Yep.
Blimey.
She was still in black and white then.
She was, and she had dark hair as well, and she's blonde now. Did you know that Wendy is now an agent?
Yes, I do.
Yeah? Well, she still does the odd convention, and she was at this convention in Ruislip, and she was telling the story of how Nick Courtney rang her up and said, "Hello darling, I wondered if I could take you out to lunch." And she said, I knew exactly what he was going to ask me. Could you please take me on as a client? And she did. And when I last saw her, I was having agent difficulties, if you like. And I said, "Wendy darling, what would you say if I were to ring you up and say, can I take you out to lunch?" And she said, "Ah." I said, "Don't worry, I won't." Not that she's not a lovely girl. But she now represents Nick Courtney and quite a lot of the other ex-Doctor Who-ites. Not sure if she's got any of the doctors. I think she might have Colin Baker, actually. But yeah, good. And keep your fingers crossed next weekend, because I am, as I said, being headhunted, and I'm being taken out for lunch after we've done this convention in Derby, which is, it's not somebody stole my handbag, but it's got a stupid name like that. Something to do with bakers. Can't remember now. But anyway, they're taking me out to lunch on Sunday, because this is a one-day event. And let's hope it goes well. The guy at the moment represents costumiers. And as he said, he's just going into, because it's a very good thing for an actor to remember, that if you want to get with a good agent, 9 times out of 10 you can't, because a good agent is a good agent because they limit the number of clients they have, because they can't work for any more. And I have, in fact, letters from the past saying, "Michael, we think you are superb, excellent, blah, 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 but it would not be fair to my existing clients." This is a new management. As I say, he represents costumiers, and as he said to me, we, or the costumiers rather, are set in place on a movie far, far ahead of the thespians. So we know what's going on. So that will be interesting. And my little bit of bait will be that I need somebody to negotiate with Mr. Andrew Diamond regarding First Frontier. So that will be fun. So, lunchtime next Sunday, fingers crossed, please. And then next time, if it all works out, we'll have a jar. Here's another question. I won't forget you, but it has to be, I'm a gent, you see. Yes, darling.
Could you host a chat show series?
Yeah, I would. Yes, I'd actually be very happy to, because I do think I have the capacity, perhaps, to get people chatting. I mean, look what I did with her yesterday. But what I would have to do is to remember not to blether too much, because if I was a chat show host, they want to see the person I'm interviewing. But I'm a pro, I could do it. Yeah, it's a good idea, that, actually. Yeah. I'll put that forward in a minute. Put your hand down. Space 1999. Sorry?
Better than Wogan, that's for sure.
I went to the British Film Institute's dinner, or luncheon actually, for the, you must have seen it in the papers, the 100 best television shows of the last century. And Michael Parkinson was he's their big chief, honorary what's it. And he introduced it. I quite like Parky actually. I think he's very good. He's looking a bit old now actually, bless his heart. Yes, I agree. Guess what was number 2 of the best TVs of all time?
Radio.
Not Radio.
No, not quite.
Doctor Who.
Huh?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
Ah, yes.
But interestingly, guess what was number 1? No. I'll put you out of your misery. Grange Hill was number 40, I think. Auf Wiedersehen's Pet. They stipulated the first series, because I was in it, was number 44. Maybe. And lots of others like Z-Cars and Finley's Casebook and so on and so forth were there as well. When they wrote to me, they said, "We are delighted to tell you that at least one of your programs is in the top 100. There were bloody 8 of them, I think. Which is wonderful. But guess what was number 1? And I wasn't in it. Have a think. Shall I give you a clue?
Yeah.
It was a comedy show.
40 Towers?
Who said that? Bang on. There were only, how many, 13 episodes made or something? 12. And I stayed there for, yes, he's not read my book, you know, I can always tell.
I've forgotten it.
Oh.
Bad memory, read both of them.
Good. I did 2 years in rep, including a summer tour. And then I came back and did Bromley and Shakespeare for schools at the Shaftesbury Theatre. That's the plays, the Shakespeare plays they do, which are being done for A-level that year or whatever. And if I tell you that The Merchant of Venice was one of them, and I played Bassanio, those of you who know your Shakespeare will know that he's the dashing lead. Mind you, I did have to wear a toupee even then. You'll realise how long ago it was. No, it's a funny old thing. It's the way the career goes. In my first year back, I did 28 tellies for the BBC. Some of them were not very large parts, a lot of them weren't, but it gets you known and that one builds on the other. And you said Germans. The first, no it wasn't the first, it was the second movie I did. It was called The Mackenzie Break, in which I got featured credit billing. And the whole bloody part was in German. And so thereafter, every time a German part came up, they said, "Oh, what about Sheard? He'd do that." And I did get the reputation of being, I became known as One Take Mike, which has its advantages because they think, "Oh, you'll save us money." But there comes the time when you fall arse over what's it, and everything goes wrong. So I'm glad that I perhaps am not known as One Take Mike any longer. But no, and the other thing to remember is that I enjoy it. I think I find film and television immensely satisfying. It does pay quite well, and it means I can have my evenings at home. So what more would you want?
So if you were offered a big part in a long-running stage show, you'd have...
I was offered Panto this year.
Have you ever done that?
I turned it down. What are you laughing for?
She knows which role it was.
No,
Imagine Michael in Panto.
you can't.
Actually, I was just, the first thing that left you on my mind was Widow Twangy.
No. The proverbial wicked balance. And there is talk, and there has been talk for a good few years now, that I would play the Baron, and Gwyneth Powell would be the fairy godmother or whatever. And there's quite a bit of mileage in that. But I couldn't do it, this one, apart from the fact that I didn't think the script was awfully good. There were lines like, my lines. No, I can't do that. I've got to go and watch television. I want to see Ground Force. There are a couple of interesting pieces in that. Work it out. Well, you don't have to work it out, you know what I'm talking about. Which is a little bit... but I hope it happens. As far as your question is concerned, I'm not sure. I always remember Margaret Rutherford. She said, darling, I can't do a voice, but I can't do longer than 3 or 5 months in a play because it becomes so boring, dear. And she said, she actually said, I used to work out my tax whilst I was on autopilot doing the scenes. Amazing. Yes, you've waited long enough.
Well, I actually think it's rather cliche being a costumer in fandom, but I know you've always wanted to play the Doctor in Doctor Who. How would you do it? What would you look like being the Doctor? Would you be a Tom Baker, a Colin Baker?
I would be a Sheard. Let's get that straight from the start.
So how would you dress your...
Well, this is actually a very pertinent question because a lot of it is in the new book. The press got hold of the fact that this director, producer was after the rights to the film that was never made. And they said, look, can we do a different slant on this? And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, we'd like some feedback. So, cut a long story short, I said, okay, you can print my email address. And I don't regret it. I had a lot of feedback. One in particular was an essay. It wasn't just an insert. Sorry, but there is one that's longer than the others. And he went into huge detail as to how the different doctors were, their good points, their bad points, how he felt that the later ones were not as good as the earlier ones, and so on and so forth. So I took my cue from that, and in fact I had promised, particularly the Doctor Who convention attendees, that if it happens, I would like some input. So for the first time, the Doctor would become our Doctor, if you see what I mean. And okay, how would you like to see the Doctor played?
I'm looking at you actually because I thought that was a leading question, I must admit. And I'm trying to think, how would I see you in Hartnell's tailcoat? Or would I see you in Tom Baker's full, very long coat?
Flashing bow tie.
Yeah.
God, is it still flashing? I've forgotten about it.
I think you very definitely like your bow tie, so I think, would that be a personal thing that you would have to have on the Doctor Who film?
Well, you see, the bow tie, frankly, is Bronson. I wore a bow tie before, but when we were discussing Bronson's costume, I said, well, I think he's a dinosaur, as we all know, and I think he would dress in that sort of manner. And he was never without a bow tie, and he was never without a nicely pressed shirt and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't want to echo Bronson. However, if you look at the costume designers' ideas for Macheal in First Frontier. When I first saw them, I said, hang on, that's Billy Hartnell. So perhaps that's been nicked already, I don't know.
I suppose the only thing, I think probably definitely a tailcoat. I know you've always wanted to do a Three Musketeers type thing, but unfortunately I think that's going a bit over the top. Possibly a sort of dress like a Regency buck, or the 1830s romantic look probably would suit you.
Well, yeah, that's a, yeah.
Batman in fancy clothes.
That's not very nice.
But in an odd way, I think that might be, if you travel back in time, might be an excellent, well, it would be an excellent idea for a story.
But the coat would definitely not have to be black. It'd have to be like a conservative blue or regal red, that kind of thing, not a black coat. But
I'm just thinking who I'd like as my companion.
Who would you like?
Oh, gosh. Yes, what a good idea. That would be absolutely splendid.
He's gone back.
But I tell you what I would like to do, actually. If it happens, I, in fact, have already said, not because I'm fussy, because I love my fellow actors, but I would like to be involved in the casting of my companion. I don't know how many of you know, but I have recently been doing some audios, Doctor Who's with Paul McGann. And he's got a new companion for the audios. And we were just chatting at lunchtime, and I said, how did you get on with your companion? I can't remember her name, I said. Because I'm afraid, cannot accept that Doctor Who would kiss his companion. Now, I know all the arguments that he is half human, so that was half of him kissing her, but it doesn't work with me. And she, I felt, bless her, I've got my other hat on now, but she was almost too sexy for a companion. Somebody help me out. What the heck was her name? Did anybody remember?
We're not talking about Sam, are we?
How much?
Not talking about Sam, are we?
No, Paul McGann.
Daphne somebody or other.
Daphne Ashbrook, is that?
Yes. It's Amazing Grace then.
Amazing Grace, because there was also Sam wasn't there?
Very sexy lady.
Yeah, she was rather.
Yeah. Too sexy for Doctor Who, in a way. Now, oh gosh, I'm digging a hole here. I love Sophie to bits. Annika, I've done masses of conventions with. Liz Sladen is an absolute doll.
Very nice.
But they all, and so is Wendy Padbury. Oh God, if I have forgotten any of them, please, I mean them all. But I think you know what I mean, you get what I mean. Ooh. Wow, thank you very much. They each had something individual. In fact, he's going like this at me now.
No.
Yes, you are. You went like that, and then you're going like that.
Actually, I was scratching my beard.
Oh, were you? All right.
In 2 minutes, I'll go like that.
All right.